Good morning. Welcome to regular council for the Corporation of the Township of Minden Hills for Thursday, March 26th. In reviewing today's agenda, there'll be a closed session near the end of the meeting. Madam Clerk, please proceed with a roll call.
Counselor Sisson,
Present.
Counselor Saney,
Present.
Counselor McKelvey,
Present.
Counselor Johansson,
Present.
Counselor Ingram, Deputy Mayor Shell,
Present.
Mayor Carter.
Present. We respectfully acknowledge that the Township of Minden Hills is located on Treaty 20 Michisagi territory and in the traditional territory of the Michisagi and Chippewa Nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations, which are Curve Lake, Rama, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Beausoleil, and Georgina Island First Nations. We acknowledge the shared presence of Indigenous nations throughout the area and recognize its original Indigenous inhabitants as the stewards of its lands and waters since time immemorial. I call this meeting to order at 9:01 a.m. Madam Clerk, please read the resolution for the approval of the agenda.
Moved by Counselor Saney, seconded by Counselor Johansson. Be it resolved that the March 26, 2026 regular council meeting agenda be approved as circulated.
All those in favor? That is carried. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, moving right along to adoption of minutes from previous meetings. We have adoptions of minutes from March 12th regular council and public meetings, 3 public meetings on March 12th. Any comments or amendments from council? Seeing none, please read the resolution.
Moved by Counselor Sisson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Shell. Be it resolved that council approves the meeting minutes as follows. March 12th, 2026 regular council meeting minutes and 3 sets of public meeting minutes for March 12th, 2026 relating to zoning bylaw amendment PL ZBA 2026066 and zoning bylaw amendment PL ZBA 2026008 and amendments to the township's official plan and zoning bylaw for source water protection.
All those in favor? That is carried. Moving right along to Mayor's report. The only thing that I think is incredibly important to us all is that we need to start preparing for the Easter egg hunt, which is a week from Saturday. So please get ready for everybody. I have to say, looking at the number of events that are over at the community center and scheduled. Please look at our website and sign up and enjoy your time over Easter. Roma Board, Councillor Saney.
Yes, thank you. Our next meeting is the beginning of April, so I don't have anything new to report except for there is going to be a teeny tiny summit. It's a virtual summit, so it's online through Zoom. It can be attended by everybody and anybody who signs up. To sign up, you can go to 2 places. You can go to the Ontario Ministry of Rural Affairs and go to their website and just type in teeny tiny summit and it will come up with the link so you can register at that time. Or you can also go to the Rural Ontario Municipalities Association website and find the link for the teeny tiny summits. So we're very excited that this is taking place virtually and that Peter Kenyon will be the lead. That he is from, as people already know, he's from Australia, and he has the Bank of Ideas, all one word is the name of his business and his initiatives. He talks worldwide and it's very well known. We've had him as a guest here in Minden at one of our teeny tiny summits in person, which was very exciting. So if community members remember that, or you want to find out more about this, great for our business community as well. So that is on March 31st from 9:30 to 11, but please register ahead of time. And then we have 3 other teeny tinies that are scheduled for in June. We're going to Clifford, which is near Minto, Wellington County area. And then May 26th, we're going to Burley Falls. And then we have one other one that's in the making. So very excited about this. And because it just really is accessible to everyone in the community. And, you know, we want to make sure counselors go and learn some of the things other communities are doing as well that might come forward here. So thank you. That's all I had to report from Roma today.
Okay, thank you. Correspondence and communications. There were two items. There was not a request to pull any items for discussion. So Madam Clerk, please proceed with reading the resolution.
Moved by Counselor Ingram, seconded by Counselor Sani, that council receives correspondence and communication items 11.1 and 11.2 as information.
All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to quarterly reporting. Mr. Timmons. What? Oh. Oh, okay, sorry, there's no, right, we're moving directly on. Yeah. Did you make something up on your way to?
Yeah.
Brent, please. All right, so 12.2.A. You start when ready. Mike.
Thank you. I believe you all have a copy. I brought some more, but I think everybody has a conceptual plan in front of them. So what you have before you is conceptual design for the crosswalk that has been proposed and approved by Minden Council on Bob Cajun Road here in the village. Details, complete details have been are being worked out for exact location, which will obviously take into consideration current infrastructure, things like catch basins that we're not going to want to relocate, light posts and stuff like that. Notably, you will see on the one side, there will be 4 parking spaces will be lost to this in order to create the bump outs that are required in the curb there to have a bit of a traffic calming effect there. So those would be spaces 5, 7, 19, and 21 on your drawings. We are proposing accessible parking immediately next to the crosswalks. Those would be spaces 4, 8, 18, and 22 to give immediate access to that crosswalk and to promote the use of that crosswalk and encourage folks to use it. Again, just a high level idea. Obviously, exact location will be determined. Surveys being done. We haven't held anything up. It's underway. If you flip to the other side of that document, it zooms in a little bit closer on the sidewalk, or sorry, the crosswalk itself, as well as what the signage will look like in town as you come through town. We will be proposing solar powered lighting, which will eliminate or at least reduce some of the construction needs and you know, the mess that creates of having to do something underground. So we're trying to be as least intrusive as possible while getting this project done. And we're well on the way with the design. And again, just an update on current plans, and happy to take any questions.
Deputy Mayor Shell.
Thank you. Through you. Mike, it's actually 6 parking spaces though, correct? Because it's 5, 6, 7, 19, 20, and 21.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, so there are the 2 buried in the, it will be 6 spaces.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the second part of that, if I may, Mr. Mayor, there's currently, I believe, 1 accessible parking space on the main street. I think that's great. And I think we need more than 1, maybe 1 on each side, but do we have to have 4 based on?
Through the chair, no, there's no requirement there. That was just part of our conceptual
Okay.
plan, was to give
Yeah,
ample.
I'm just wondering if 1 on each side would be appropriate, just because we're losing so many regular parking spaces. I
Sure.
mean, and we want to provide the accessible, but maybe 4 is more than we need, and it would just take up spaces that, you know, maybe aren't necessary, but just my thoughts. I'm not an engineer.
Councilor Ingram.
To the chair. I like the concept and everything like that. Mike, what you've done, I agree with you, Councillor or Deputy Mayor Shell, on the parking. I think 2 is sufficient because we're losing so many. The only thing I would ask, Mike, is and the rest of us is, can we communicate with the downtown people on the concept just as a courtesy more than anything, and maybe they've got some ideas that are better than ours because they're there every day, right? That's all I have.
Councillor Hennessy.
So everybody knows it's on the screen as well. On the walls again, so. Thank you. First and foremost, thank you for bringing this this report before council. I'm very happy that this project has come to the table and the work that has been done, that has been put into the proposal. I'm very excited as I believe that the safety of our community is a high priority. Since this agenda was made public, there has been some community members, mostly at this time, business owners that have been engaged in conversation with myself and I'm sure other councillors. I've had no one say this is not needed, but there's always a but. We have some concerns and questions. There is a concern about a timeline for public consultation regarding the survey and talking and engaging with the Main Street business owners and others, perhaps an open house. There is concern about the crossing being located in the middle of the main street. Is there other solutions? This proposal is eliminating 4 parking spots, 2 on each side for the crosswalk and 4 for accessibility. Is the 4 for accessibility a requirement? Sorry if I'm repeating some of the other stuff. Could this be reduced? Businesses are concerned about losing the flow of people into their establishments. I believe we have touched on this before and being asked why not make the existing crossings with proper lights and signage. Flashing red lights would alert drivers of crossings. Is it only one proposal for the downtown core, meaning a crosswalk on Water Street as well? We need an effective, safer crossing area. There are high-speed traffic, not only in the busy months. We need to make this safe for everyone, including wheelchairs. A 3-way stop has been mentioned over and over. Months ago, I was extremely passionate regarding this crosswalk, and I still am. Whatever is done here will change the flow of people and traffic. I believe we need to go the safest route, but all the boxes need to be checked. Thank you.
Councillor Sisson.
I just wonder what's going to happen on the bridge side where they come across here now. Like, that's going to be really hard to stop people from walking across there. So
Yeah,
what
at
I was
the
wondering-
existing courtesy cross.
Okay, what I
So
was wondering, is that somewhere where the Legion might be interested in doing their cross?
I have been in conversation with the Legion and currently the discussion is to use their decal and stencil at this location that we're proposing. Part of what I would like to get away from, and this answers part of Councillor Johannesson's comments as well, is from my opinion, these both corners are already bad corners. I'm actually trying to get the foot traffic away from those corners. And I appreciate the suggestion of making them both proper crosswalks, but I don't think that draws away. And of course, now you're doubling the project size as well. Hearing the concerns on the parking, obviously that's an important aspect. I do have some ideas that I've been kicking around about adding parking along Water Street. There are some options there for us, something that maybe could come forward for a 2027 conversation on expanding that a little bit. Yeah, I think to your comment, Councillor Sisson, I don't know that we want to, I don't know how we stop them. You're right. Anytime there's a corner, theoretically, there is a crosswalk there, right? Whether we put one there, when there's a corner, people are going to cross the street. But with that being said, I think we take away the signage, we properly sign the new one and encourage people to come there. And I think the goal is to draw that foot traffic away from those bad blind corners that you see at the bank and also at the bridge end.
My point is, well, like, if people are walking on that side of the bridge, they gotta cross over somewhere, right? Even to get, you either have to come across the road here to get to this side, or they have to go across there to get to the crosswalk. Either way, they're still gonna use that corner, I think.
So I think there are two things here. We can still put zebra stripes as a like that exist without marking a crosswalk, right? And we do that in some locations. You can still have a walking designated, without being an official crosswalk. So I think we can still line it and we can still mark that out. And I think that would likely help with your concern.
Councillor McKelvey.
So when we remove the courtesy crossing, will we be putting in some more parking there then in front of what Used to be the grill and the golf.
Through the chair, that is one spot that would theoretically become available, because now part of that is that we are obviously trying to leave some space for the current courtesy crosswalk. So that would be one location. There's also, it'll be a little bit further up Water Street, but we have space along Water Street to create more of a parking lane, where we have that. Currently, there's a bit of a berm built up with grass that holds water. We want to deal with that anyway. And there is opportunity there. It's not fully fleshed out, but there is opportunity.
Okay, so my other question here is, thanks for Deputy Mayor Cheryl Shaw pointing out that it's actually 6 parking spots we're losing, because like that's really big in the downtown. We don't have, I think this says we had 26 and we're gonna lose 6. I had thought it was 4, and I was concerned about taking away 4 and converting 4 others. So now we're taking away 6 and converting 4 other. We're taking away 10 regular parking spots here, really. And I really think we need to talk to the business community about this and allow them to have their feedback. I have received not a lot, but I have received feedback since the agenda went out. The concern of the business people is, if they'd like the crosswalk, everybody's happy that we're going to have a proper crosswalk, but I don't think anybody realized the legal requirements for that on the number of spaces you have to get rid of them. So I think we really need to get their feedback on what their thoughts are on this. The disabled parking spot that's up by the CIBC end, to me, still almost should be there, because I think a lot of people who go to the bank still use that. But I'm not sure that we need 4 other ones, perhaps 2, but that's still impacting our parking downtown. And if people, we're just creatures of habit, that if we can't get a convenient spot, we're not gonna go to that store. And it's too bad we can't try to get the people to park in behind here and make a nicer walkway through than the one we have. It's a little more inviting. I really want to see us go out to the business people, and we can do that through that Minden Business Working Group to try to perhaps have a meeting with them, show them this concept, get their feedback. But the feedback I'm getting is we can't afford to lose that many parking spots. Now, I have said, I am quite certain the legislation says you have to have X number of feet from a crosswalk to make it safe for people.
Yeah.
But perhaps we could set up a.
See you.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I think this is very good discussion, very good feedback, and I think Mr. Timmons can take away the idea of let's meet with the business owners, and I'm happy to support. We did sit down and look at some of the concepts and some of the ideas. So I have transportation planning background as well. The one corner, the corner up the way here is a very, very difficult corner to try and put any proper crosswalk in. The other thing with the one near the bridge is it's almost a blind corner when you're coming out. So the focus here, absolutely, we want to support our business community. We want to support the downtown. But the one thing I've heard since I've been here is safety about crossing. People have been coming out between parked cars to Councillor Sisson's comment. People jaywalk all the time. You can't, we're trying to sort of cordon people into a proper crosswalk. It doesn't mean they won't cross wherever they want to cross. We're trying to put a proper crosswalk in a safe area, and trying to do it on the one corner up the hill here would probably be at least double the cost of what we're looking at right now. Mr. Timmons and I have talked about a concept that we will bring as part of the next budget go around for additional parking on Water Street. We've also got a couple of other ideas about potential increasing of parking for the downtown. I think you're right, Councillor McKelvey, in the sense that this is changing people's habits. But, you know, I think this is what we're going to have to weigh is, you know, I don't know that we're going to make everybody happy in putting in this kind of major change in the downtown, but we're certainly happy to get input from folks.
Councillor Sami.
Yeah, agreeing with what has been said so far by everybody. My biggest concern are those two corners at the end and the complications of where you have to look, even having lived here for over 30 years and know where these locations are and which way you have to look. We are very fortunate that we haven't had any kinds of really major issues on those corners. But they are very dangerous. So I'm very pleased that we're going to put this somewhere else. And then maybe also have for the downtown and in consultation with them, some signs that say public downtown parking and then pointing to where that might be. And so that way people will know that there's more parking. They're just not going down the main street and say nowhere to park, but to go on to wherever. So if we have that, you know, downtown parking, send them to the slot out here, that would be excellent. And I'm sure you'll get some feedback along that line. The other is I'm wondering if we want to line this up with our walkthrough. So when you come to the public parking, there's a clear walkthrough and then you are on, go to both sides. So aesthetically, just lining up the path. And so you don't have that kind of back and forth, but just some ideas, and with your input from other folks, I'm sure you'll come up with the best design. Thank you.
Councillor Ingram.
Through the chair. I know this isn't part of this job, Mike, but looking forward, is there any way, say we got some miraculous grant to do the sidewalks and what have you in the town, would you take those humps out and those planters out that are on the corners? Like at the CIBC and perhaps the other one, they're not just an eyesore now, but they are an impedance
Yeah,
to some people. The only other thing I wanted to ask you is to maybe think going down the road. I like your idea. The only problem with putting the walkway directly on is it's gonna stop people on the walkway where we're gonna go. If you have it offset, people can kind of move out and then just thing. I think we should look at how we can improve that walkway next year, like not this year, obviously, at the back. And that, I think it includes talking to business owners to use their building to do work on it. I think we should think about that down the road. That's all.
Okay, Councillor McKelvey.
I think we included money in the budget to do the sidewalks downtown. So is that going to be all done at the same time, or I know you don't want to do this either. You don't want to build something and then tear it up. So I'm just wondering, will this work impact that other work on the sidewalks? Plus also the timing. When are we thinking this would all be done?
through the chair, the first question is, the answer to the first question is that I intend to put this out as one package, all the concrete work and to one contractor, the pedestrian crossover as well as the sidewalk improvements. So that answers that question, that yes, they'll go hand in hand, and obviously that contract will organize to not impede their own work. It will be the concrete, the sidewalk upgrades are going to be somewhat spot repairs during the worst of the worst. It's not going to be a wholesale to sort of what you had sort of mentioned. So if we get to a point where we do a bigger core adjustment, we would discuss those, like the street furniture and stuff that you mentioned. And sorry, was there a second part to yours, Councilor McKelvey? Oh, timing. So we're moving forward nicely with the tender package. So I had intended to get this going in the next couple of weeks. Obviously, if we're going to take some time to do the public consultation, that'll push it back a little bit, but we are on pace to get this out imminently and get this rolling for summer, fall work.
All right, so much input, and so you now have your sort of direction to how to move it. At this point, we're just receiving this for information. So. Please. Councillor McKelvey.
Are we saying we want that consultation done, or are we just saying some of
think-
us are suggesting it? I'm just wanting to make sure that it's not, nobody leaves here today and the working group thinks they're not going to be consulted, or that they think they're going to be and we're not going to. I just want it clarified and perhaps in the resolution.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it is definitely our intention to connect with the working group. However, if council wants to leave that with us, great. If you feel you need a resolution, that's fair.
Councillor Sani.
Yeah, thank you. I think, I don't feel a need for a motion on this. I think, consulting, find out when the next meeting is so we can move this sooner than later is really good. But I also want to recognize too, there are a lot of people that aren't involved or attending those meetings as well that we need to consult with. So just putting on, public notice that if you want to have some input in this, just give Mike's email and let people have input into it as well. Is that a way to go, Mike? If people have information they're concerned with, if they could shoot you an email on this and you'd consider it?
Absolutely, and we'll arrange a time to meet and I'll work with the CAO on it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think the other thing to mention to council, Mike, I believe you're attending the Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting with this project as well. Okay. So just, we'll have that lens as well.
I think we just leave it with staff and we can just accept this as information. There's much more that needs to be completed, including, as you said, you don't want to be ripping up other infrastructure to get this done. So you want to fit it in. So exactly where it's going to be is still probably up in the air. So let's accept this as information and staff will push forward with this.
Moved by Councillor Hannison, seconded by Councillor Sani, that council receives report 2609 Minden pedestrian crossover conceptual plan as information.
All those in favor? That is carried. Bring up to pickup trucks.
Thank you, Mayor Carter. Next report, 2610 for the pickup truck award. This tender went through the County of Haliburton collaboratively with a couple of the other lower tiers. The county went through their process and we were able to work with them to get a number of, I believe we had 7 submissions. Only three of them met the requirements that we had laid out for the specific vehicles we wanted. Information relating to those 3 submissions are attached in the financial implication section. Staff have determined that this contract should be awarded to Fraser Ford for a total of $157,011 plus HST. That does leave just shy of $33,000 between the 2 trucks in additional funding that had originally been approved. That additional money will be spent on items like 2-way radios, AVL equipment, and all the accessories that go into our trucks to get them up on the road. Any questions? I'm happy to discuss.
We approved 2 trucks yesterday at county council. It was amazing and see it here, but also in the full 7 of the range in the quotes. I mean, it was a massive difference. But Councilor Ingram.
Can we service these here? Will we be servicing them in?
There is a dealership in Minden and I don't see why we wouldn't.
Okay, I'm just curious. Thanks.
Councilor McKelvey.
Is there any way to cherry pick this?
No, I appreciate that. And that was a conversation we had, but the idea is to award.
It's a package.
Yes, it's a
Okay.
yes. So yes, we're awarding to the lowest combined bidder.
Please read the resolution.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Shell, seconded by Councillor McKelvey, that council receives report 2610 Public Works pickup truck tender award as information. And that council directs staff to award RFT CTY Public Works 2026 1B pickup trucks to Fraser Ford for a total cost of $157,011.25 plus HST for 2 vehicles.
All those in favor? It's- Sorry, all those in favor? It's carried. Thank you, sir. Ms. McGuigan, Community Services.
You have a report in front of you for the Friends and Family Festival that is looking to come to use the Minden Fairgrounds the end of September. We've been working with the organizers for the last 8 months in coordination with our senior leadership team as well as emergency services. The organizers will be conducting a meet and greet on Friday, May 22nd from 3:30 to 5:30 at SG Nesbitt Memorial Arena for opportunity for people to learn about the festival as well as ways to get involved. They've been working with local businesses and contractors for sourcing fencing, porta potties, garbage removal, etc. It was offered to them about the overnight parking because it's their first year doing the event here in Minden. They want to do it more at a lower scale event to see what the logistics are, but would be considering that in the future at that point. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Deputy Mayor Shell.
I'm not sure I can ask this question, but if I can't, then just tell me I can't. Is this the same organization that wanted to have, okay, that's, because I keep getting asked that question, so the answer is no. Thank you.
Any other questions? Let's read the resolution.
Moved by Counselor Sisson, seconded by Counselor McKelvey, that council receives report 2605, Community Services Department, FAF Festival Ontario is information.
All those in favor? That is carried. Now moving on to Community Services Department. Please proceed.
Yes, so before you is the Cultural Center Advisory Committee February meeting minutes. The committee did receive Councillor Johannesson's resignation effective immediately. We want to thank Councillor Johannesson for her time on the committee and dedication to culture and heritage programming and her continued advocacy in the Minden Hills. If there's any other questions in regards to the minutes, I'm happy to answer those.
I think council should thank Councillor Johannesson for her time and dedication to this committee. Would you like to make any comments?
Gosh, I don't have anything written down. I really enjoyed it and I will still continue to support you guys. So you've done amazing work and just keep doing what you're doing. Thank you.
Councillor Saini, yours remain on the committee, I understand.
Yes, and as you know, we have to have a counselor at every meeting to make it happen. So I have to be there. We're not coordinating with Shirley now, but that's, it's been good and Shirley has been a great contributor to this committee. She is missed. And, but I expect that sometimes you might drop in if you're available. And certainly I know you attend the events and things of the Cultural Center. And it's a blooming organization there, the committee. Thank you.
Councillor McKelvey.
Are you appointing another member of council?
I was going to ask that question
Okay.
next.
Oh, wait.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so the idea is there any volunteer? I am ex officio, yes. But are there any volunteers to replace? I know impossible to replace Councillor Johannesson, but to take her place at meetings? I just need another committee. All right. Okay. That, please read the resolution.
Moved by Counselor Sani, seconded by Counselor Johansson, that council receive report 2606, Community Services Department, Minden Hills Cultural Center Advisory Committee meeting minutes dated February 10th, 2026 as information, and that council acknowledges with regret the resignation of Counselor Shirley Johansson from the Minden Hills Cultural Center Advisory Committee.
Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Yep. Hello. Okay, we are taking a 10-minute break. We'll get back here at 9:45. All right, welcome back, everybody. We had a minor technological hiccup. Madam Clerk, you have a,
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we've just realized we have a report that we need to walk on the agenda this morning. And it's a regulatory requirement, so it's an urgent matter. So I've just drafted a resolution to amend the agenda to include the report. So if I may read the motion,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor. Moved by Counselor Saney, seconded by Counselor Ingram, that council approves the amendment to the agenda to include report 2608, Public Works Aqua Annual Drinking Water Report.
all those in favor? That is carried. I turn it over to you,
Thank you, Mayor
gentlemen.
Carter, and
Uh,
thanks to the clerk's department for getting that organized. Just very briefly, since I have a redo here, I did forget I was so excited to talk about crossovers. I was going to introduce our new roads manager. Garrett is here, just observing. He's been with the township for a few years, been in the manager role now for a couple of months, so we're just easing him in. So, face to the name. Just forgot that the first time around, so. Yeah, so far, so far. Okay, on to the water report. As mentioned, regulatory requirement to have this before council by March 31st. So hence the urgency to make this amendment. The two water systems, Lutterworth and Minden water treatment plants, are obviously operated by Aqua, and they fall under OREG 17003 for drinking water systems. That requires annual reporting, and that these reports are delivered to council, like I said, by March 31st, and then posted on the township website. So these are the 2025 reports, and if there are any further questions, we're happy to take those now.
maybe since we just received these 20 pages or so, maybe you could go into a little bit more detail, just at least on the highlights of this.
I guess the highlights from our end, the Lutterworth system received 100% compliance for the inspection. The AWQIs there, we had a sodium exceedance, which was just over the limit, and then on the resample, I believe it was about the same amount. So that gets posted. Uranium, we do treat for uranium at that site, so we have a uranium removal system which uses ion exchange. The issue has been that we sample it monthly, much more than we're required to, and that's so we can try and catch increases diligently and then change the media. What's happened in the last year or so, if there's a leak on the system, it runs a lot of additional water through the system, and then that uses up that filter a lot quicker. So we did have a leak. We did find it, but we had to change the media, and then on our sample, prior to changing the media, it exceeded the half max. So that was reported. We changed the media. There's no further action required, but we're just, again, being diligent just to make sure that we're sampling that monthly. We do have a persistent leak issue at one location there. So we're just, when we know that there's a leak, then we just go and check that on specific locations. And then in terms of Minden, I believe it was above 95%. We did a lot of hydrant replacements, and we complete a disinfection form for all of the infrastructure replacements. We did emergency change a curb stop at the old fire hall, which isn't used. We did disinfect it. It wasn't recorded in our logbook. So when the inspector was there doing the inspection, noted that, he asked us for a copy of the disinfection record. So we made one up and provided it to them, but it was after that. So that was the only issue on it.
But in terms of results and so on, everything is fine. Councillor Ingram?
For you, usage up or down? I like Lutterworth, I think was up a bit, but pretty much the same. It's pretty good. Thanks.
Any other questions? Any other comments?
Nope, nothing for me. It's just to receive as information.
Right. Please read the resolution.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Shell, seconded by Councillor McKelvey, that council receives report 2608, Public Works, Aqua Annual Drinking Water Reports as information, and that council receives the annual Lutterworth Drinking Water System Report and the annual Minden Drinking Water Report as information.
All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, gentlemen. Chief, when you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning through you, Mr. Mayor. With the passage of the updated establishing and regulating bylaw for the fire department, there were some questions about the addition of swift water. So I've brought forward this report to try and answer those questions. Prior to the addition of swift water rescue to the establishing and regulating bylaw, we would operate at an awareness level, which means essentially if we got called to, say, the Whitewater Preserve, fire department would still attend. We would recognize that we have a swift water occurrence, and then we would have no choice but to call the province for assistance. The province would then reach out and try and send us the closest available swift water rescue crew. With the passage of the new bylaw, we have not changed that operational status as of yet because the firefighters are not yet trained to perform swift water rescue. So once the firefighters are trained to the appropriate level, then they would be able to perform a swift water rescue. So for right now, nothing has changed. We are still operating at an awareness level until we are properly trained to perform the service. As far as the training piece, I have arranged for the swift water rescue training to be a couple of courses to be run here in Minden Hills. We will have one course run here in June and another one to be run here in July of this year. Because we have agreed to host the course, the Ontario Fire College offers us up to half of the spots in each of those courses, which should work out to 8 spots in each course. So in theory, by the end of July, we will have 16 of our firefighters certified for swift water rescue. Excuse me. Because we are hosting the course, there is no cost to us. And we actually are able to charge a fee to fire departments from across the province that are sending their firefighters to attend the course here in Minden Hills. And we would charge a nominal fee in order to cover the cost of lunch, essentially. And then the Ontario Fire College provides all of the equipment for the course. So we are not using our equipment for this course. So again, there's no cost to us. As far as equipment, I know there were some questions about the cost of equipment. The equipment that we use for swift water, or that we would be using for swift water, is the same equipment that we use for surface and ice water rescue. And we already have that equipment. We replace it as needed on an annual basis. Typically try and replace a couple of suits each year, maybe some of the ropes, we replace them each year, depending on their condition. The only change that has been made, previously, I would purchase the suits that are strictly for ice rescue or surface water rescue. Now I've begun purchasing suits that could double for ice rescue as well as swift water rescue. So there'll be no additional cost. Again, I typically purchase a couple of suits each year to make sure that we have enough functioning suits so that the firefighters have the proper equipment to safely and effectively perform the rescue. With that, I think I will open it up to questions for council.
Just so for clarity's sake, tell me the relationship between the fire marshal's office and the fire college.
So the fire college, the Ontario Fire College, is just a division of the office of the fire marshal.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Shaw.
Thank you. I'm going to be honest with you, Chief. When we passed this bylaw, I didn't sleep that night because the minute that we pass the bylaw, we are obligated then to provide a service. And if we are providing a service that we are not equipped to do, that comes back on council, who now just passed the bylaw. How many my first part of the question is in the last, say, 20 or so years, how many swift water rescues have been
So-
required by the municipality?
I can't go back longer than a couple of years. But we have been called to the Whitewater Preserve over the last 2 years about a half dozen times. We have been fortunate that in those situations, we were not required to enter the water. We had one situation where we fished the patient out of Mountain Lake at, or I'm not sure, maybe it's not Mountain Lake, Minden.
Minden
Thank
Lake,
you.
yeah.
We were fortunate that we were able to get the patient after she had gone all the way down through the falls. Had she been caught up in somewhere in the river in the falls, we would have had a bit of a dilemma because we cannot offer that service at that time. Now, with the addition to the ENR bylaw, we are starting to train and equip ourselves to safely and effectively perform that service.
If I just made a follow-up with that, then I don't think it should be in the bylaw until we are capable of providing the service and being completely legally covered on that. That's just my opinion. Like I said, that night afterwards, I thought, well, you know how you think of things. Anyway, I think until we have staff trained, because I know you have a plan to have it, but what happens if they decide they're not going to do the training this spring? So they don't come to Minden to do it. It's now in our bylaw and we don't get to do the training because they're not offering it because maybe there's not enough other people to come, that kind of thing. So my opinion is it should be removed from the bylaw until we are equipped to do that. And that's my opinion.
Councilor McKelvey?
You recall, I brought this up at the meeting too, because I too am very concerned that once we put something in a bylaw, we're setting our firefighters up for a problem that may not be safe. And I can't sleep at night knowing that. So I concur the service of swift water rescue should not be in our ENR bylaw until we have confirmation that all firefighters have been trained.
I think Councillor Broom has a comment, and then yes, I'd like to comment.
Okay. Councilor Ringer?
Do you? Mike, how many suits do you plan on purchasing? Just wait. Just wait. How often do those have to be replaced? And what is the cost of ongoing training for 16 firefighters?
So through the chair. So right now we have 2 specific swift water suits. I typically replace 2 suits each year. That's just through our annual operating budget. So there's no additional costs there. As far as how often they have to be replaced, there's no set answer to that. I send them out annually to be inspected and tested and repaired if necessary. But there is no set. It's not like, for example, our bunker gear are good for 10 years. Stuff like the ropes usually have a 10-year lifespan. With the swift water and the ice rescue suits, there is no time frame for them. It's
What would you be
as
looking
needed.
at? Like, would you be looking at having 16 suits? Or
Well,
this is
through
what
the
I'm getting at, like, do we need 16 suits or is it a generic suit for different body sizes?
Yeah, so they are kind of a one size fits all. The goal would be to have as many as I can get. But I don't have a fixed number that I'm aiming for, other than, for example, for ice rescue, a minimum of 7 to perform a safe and effective rescue for the firefighters. So I would be aiming for at least a similar number for swift water.
So that being said, we really would have to go to get them once we're trained. Not
Yes,
2 every year. We'd have to get them right away.
yes,
Okay.
and that has been built into
That's in
the
there?
operating budget. Yes.
Okay. What about ongoing training going forward? Is it yearly or is it?
It would be multiple times a year. So the way we train the firefighters, like we train what we refer to as the low frequency, high risk things. We train on those the most because those are the most likely to injure our firefighters. So things like, moving forward, swift water, ice rescue, search and rescue, that sort of thing. We train on those multiple times each year.
But is there, I guess what I'm asking, is there a certification that requires you to retrain each year?
Through the chair? No, there is not. Once they are certified, they are certified. And then we must
Yeah, you're
continually
Yeah, yeah.
train.
Okay, but that's in-house.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Saney?
Thank you, through the chair. I'm really pleased that we are finally doing this. That whitewater rafting and whitewaters that we have here have been there forever. And we're finally getting this initiative in our fire department. So I'm really pleased that, you've done that. And also in an ingenious way where we're not paying anything, so we're inviting other people to take the training. So that's a win-win for other communities as well, for us. And the other thing is, I think it's kind of a chicken and the egg is how I see this, do you do the bylaw or the training? What comes first? I'm not a lawyer. I don't know what comes first. But the fact that we're going ahead with this is important. If there is a chicken and egg question, the kinds of things that might arise, I think is more of a legal question than something I as not a legal person could know. So maybe if we just asked our lawyer to make councils at ease about any kinds of liability that we might have because the bylaw went before the training. Training's coming up this year. So that's exciting. And but that would be my recommendation at this point. Thank you.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Just a quick Google search says that Swiftwater Rescue has to be recertified every 3 years.
That may be for instructors or private entities, but for the fire college,
Yeah.
every discipline, we certify and then they are certified. And then we just must train every year.
Okay.
Similar, as an example, first aid and CPR. The firefighters are all certified in first aid and CPR. By law, we don't have to certify every year. We have to certify every 2 years or every 3 years, depending on, but we still do the certification training every year.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just, I think for me, I just want to clarify with council. I don't think we're just talking about the swift water or the rapids, facility. I think swift water definition, I asked this question, are we really just focused on that one location? Or can any of our rivers, lakes, if the flow is too great on a given day, can that be considered swift water? So I think it's a broader service than just one area of our township. And I guess Chief Kruger, can
Through
you?
the chair, yes, that is correct. The definition of swift water is any body of water, or the area of the water that's moving at more than 1.5 knots per hour. And I think, as most of you would be aware of, the Gull River could be considered a swift water source for most, if not the entire year. Anywhere where there's a dam, from 12 Mile Lake into Mountain Lake, that is swift water. Moores Falls, Miners Bay, it is not, yes, we are talking about the Whitewater Preserve because that is the most obvious source of swift water, but there are many sources of swift water within our community.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, just, I guess a point of clarification, and it goes to Councillor Saney's point, a bit of chicken and egg. I guess the chief has had a great opportunity to arrange certification training in our community. The dates are booked as far as I know. Communication is going out to our firefighters. So council's thought of delaying including swift water in our bylaw. I just need clarification. It's not that we're not going to provide swift water rescue in the future. Because I have to tell you, our firefighters are looking for this certification. Just given what we've just talked about with how prevalent it can be in our community.
Okay, Councillor Ingram first.
Yeah, exactly what we're talking about, right? I think we do want to do this, but we don't want to have the liability or responsibility without having the training in place. It doesn't make sense to do that to me. I don't want to be held liable for somebody drowning because we couldn't provide the service. And if there's an attempt to do the service and God forbid one of our firefighters is injured or hurt, we're responsible for that. See in court. So I'm all for it, but I think we need to have it in place before we.
Mayor Shell.
As well, fully supportive, especially under the model that you have of coming here and getting it for free or a meal, I think is wonderful. It's just that we don't do it right now. I'm really uncomfortable saying in a bylaw that we do when we're not prepared to do it. That's the only part of it that I struggle with.
Councillor McKelvey.
I also support us proceeding with the training to get our firefighters ready to do this sort of service, but I don't want it in our bylaw until we have confirmation that we have enough people trained.
So,
I'm going to defer to the clerk. She's polished, given our little kerfuffle earlier. I would think that would be a reconsideration.
Actually, through the chair, what we can do is actually bring forward an amending bylaw to the next meeting, just removing the swift water rescue to the ENR, which is to establish and regulate the volunteer fire department. We can do an amending bylaw, which will remove that section. And then all we do is once we're certified and council is comfortable, we'll just bring the bylaws back. We'll revoke the two and just pass. Just so we don't have a bunch of bylaws sitting there and people stop getting confused which bylaw is enforced. So that's what I would recommend.
Councillor McKelvey.
I think it is a reconsideration, so I don't know if there has to be something done at this meeting that we're going to reconsider the bylaw at the next meeting, just from, I don't know, from that.
Through the chair, we can put that in the resolution, that's fine, but typically when you do a reconsideration, the motion comes back basically for council to establish that they want to reconsider it, and then council passes that, and then it's another meeting
Yes.
to actually put it into force and effect. So
That's what I'm wondering, do we need?
so
to
it's
do
two
the
meetings. It would be
reconsider-
two meetings.
Yeah,
as
and I don't
opposed-
think we want to wait 2 meetings.
That's why I suggested what I did.
So amending bylaw, we could just add the amendment and then take off the amendment when we.
Yeah.
That seems like a more reasonable approach.
Now, if council wishes, I can add that council directs to reconsider and bring forward an amending bylaw. I can word it that way if that's more comfortable for council within the resolution today. I mean, regardless, it's the same turning, like it's just more procedurally.
Councillor McKelvey.
I would like that we put it in there that we want it, and that we are going to remove the swift water rescue. So just so that it's very specific, that as of today, we've, maybe not technically changed the bylaw, but our intention is very clear.
Councillor Sammy.
Yeah, appreciating the training, et cetera, is going to happen really quickly, relatively speaking. But in the interim, then we do have a procedure that we have someone from the province to come in. So there's a delay in what we would do in that situation. just
So
in a
through the chair,
practical
yeah,
sense.
if we were to be presented with that situation, it would be a call to the PIOC, and then we would have to wait for the province to send us assistance. It depends on where that help is coming from. It could be Barrie, it could be Peterborough, it could be Ottawa. I don't know where our closest help would be.
Yes, it's very difficult. The one part is, over the next month or so, every one of our lakes will be over 1.5. So that means any rescue on any lake at any time would be. Okay. You have Sven.
I'm almost done, sorry. So I just, if council doesn't mind, I'll just first. And just to be on record, it's Councilor McKelvey and Deputy Mayor Shell that actually, so we would have to approve the amendment, okay? So the amendment includes, we'll keep the first line the same, just receiving the report. That council reconsiders bylaw 2624 to establish and regulate the volunteer fire department passed at the February 26, 2026 regular meeting, and further directs an amending bylaw be brought forward to the next meeting of council, removing swift water rescue. Is council comfortable with that amendment?
Okay.
Yep, that's correct. As this is a recorded vote, we will proceed in alphabetical order. If council could answer for to be in favor and against to be in opposition, okay? We'll start with Councillor Ingram.
In
For.
favor?
For,
Sorry.
that's okay. Councillor Johannesson, for or against? For. Thank you. Councillor McKelvey, for or against? For. Thank you. Councillor Saini, for or against?
Oops, 4.
Deputy Mayor Shell, for or against?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Sisson, for or against?
For.
Thank you. Mayor Carter, for or against?
For.
Okay, so it's carried. We have a unanimous vote.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Planning and Development. Doherty. Let's start. The first one is a severance agreement.
Yes, through Mr. Mayor, sorry, good morning, everybody. Report 26-14 is for, yes, severance agreement, and this is a condition of consent H-018-25. But I don't have anything further to add. It's a fairly standard condition, but happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, let's read the.
Moved by Councillor McKelvey, seconded by Councillor Sisson, that council receive report 2614 planning as information, and further that bylaw 2634 being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into a severance agreement with Stephen Langdon and Abida Jamal for application PLSEVA 2026007 be referred to the bylaw section of the agenda.
All those in favor? That is carried. And then we have a consent agenda for next 3. Is that you have any comments?
No, Mr. Mayor, I don't, unless there's any questions.
Okay, are there any questions from council? Seeing none, please read the resolution.
Moved by Councillor Johannesson, seconded by Councillor Saini, that council receive the following sale of shore road allowance applications and planning reports as information. 2617 PLSRA 2025016, 2618 PLSRA 2025047, 2619 PLSRA 2024053, and further that council refers bylaws 2635, 2636, and 2637 to the bylaw section of the agenda to stop up, close, and convey part of the original shore road allowance with respect to the said application.
All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your shortest stint ever. Finance? Mr. Drinkwalter? Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Through the chair. The first report is regarding the BAO, or the Bereavement Authority of Ontario. So we received a letter from our Scotia Wealth Management Group, basically stating that they're closing down their trust services. I believe there's roughly 350 or so municipalities that are affected by this. We do have a few options, but we're in a good situation where we already have 3 trust funds set up. So we're able to move the Scotia Wealth Management Fund to our other cemetery trust fund. And this way we don't have to set up a new trust. We don't need to get a new trust manager. We can already just transfer it over. But I do need council's approval to transfer from a trust to another trust. So that's the main body of this report. The amount to be transferred is roughly $8,635. I say roughly because on the day of the transfer, it's the market value of the investment. So whatever that might be at the time. The second part to this report is regarding the notice we got from the BAO to halt sales of plots at our cemetery. This was due to, so as I mentioned, we have 3 trust funds. Each trust fund requires a Form 2, which is the revenues and expenses on the trust fund or that account. So we do require 3 of them to be submitted. In 2024, it appears only our main trust fund was submitted. The other 2 were put on the portal, just never formally submitted. So when we did receive the letter, I logged on to the BAO, realized they weren't submitted, and got them submitted. And now that letter, the cease and desist letter from the BAO has been reversed, and we're back to selling our plots and business as usual.
Could you give us an idea of the size of the 3 trust funds?
Yes, I don't have them in front of me, but the main one is around 300,000. So that's with CIBC. We have one that's about $2,300. That's also with CIBC, and it's a GIC fund. And then we have one with Scotia Wealth Management, which we're transferring over, which is about $8,600.
So the reason 3, they just historical, they got set up at different times, or?
That's what I gather. I did a bit of research on the funds, but it appears they go back quite a long time ago, when we had separate cemetery boards running these trusts. I did talk to a previous treasurer to get a bit of history on the funds, but they were before her time as well when they were set up. So it does sound like when we had 3 separate cemetery trusts, they were set up. And I think when the current GIC for the $2,000 comes due, I'll come back with a report to transfer it into our main fund, so we can have one main fund to run all our cemetery trusts through.
Councilor McKelvey?
So the Scotia Bank one was clearly must have been for the Calert Cemetery, so it would have been prior to amalgamation. But I do have So like the cemetery trust funds, they're for the care and maintenance. When you
Correct.
sell a
Perpetual
plot,
care, yes.
which used to be perpetual care, but then there's also the monument care and maintenance. Is that a separate trust or?
Yes, I believe, I don't believe that's something mandated by the BAO, and it's something set up, was most likely set up by a cemetery board when there was a mon. Because I believe that legislation, is not specific to a monument anymore, but it's all through the maintenance and care. But I'd probably have to do a bit more research on that, but we do have a separate cemetery trust that's run by us, but it's not under the BAO.
Okay. The other thing was the last time we had, I think it was the last time, but I could be wrong on that, but we had Oscar here, KPMG, to present I think it was the 23 financial statements. It might have been the year before that, it was the 22. But I asked at that time for the trust fund statements. And I don't believe we ever received them. So do these not have to be audited as well?
Yes, they are done through our regular audit,
Okay.
yes.
So we haven't even posted the trust fund statements. And I'm just not sure that KPMG even did that. Which you don't have to answer today. It's obviously not. So, I mean, you just got here, so.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I do have an answer whether
None of
they,
this is
but
your fault.
they are typically done with the audit and
Yeah.
separate statements are
Yeah.
received, yeah.
And I did ask at that time and we still haven't received them, so you might, but we've changed auditors. Hopefully, we're gonna get those. The other thing was the cemetery board, when you mentioned that, and our cemetery bylaw requires that we have a cemetery board. If our bylaw is changed, we could change it to say we want to have a cemetery advisory committee, or we don't, our board is going to be council, or whatever we want to change. But right now, on the record, we have a bylaw that establishes Minden Cemetery, and it must have a board. So I'm thinking it's another thing to put on your to-do list, that we have to get that sorted out, because according to bylaw, the board has to pass the budget. So, we haven't done that for quite some time. It used to be done that way. I believe when Lori was here as treasurer, it was always done that way. Don't believe it's happened since, but we either need to change that bylaw or we need to comply with it. Because the BAO, I know, will tell you that you can have it as a committee and just an advisory committee, but you have to change your bylaw to do that.
Ms. McQuiggin, add something?
So through the chair, to answer Councillor McKelvey's question, we are currently working with the BAO to revise our cemetery bylaws. It is a lengthy process, but those are things that we kind of highlighted. So we are working with the BAO to get those bylaws updated, because the last one was 2018.
So if I may,
Go ahead.
all I'm saying is until we have that bylaw changed, and then it has to be approved by the BAO, and it is a lengthy process, we must have a cemetery board. So I just want to make sure that this comes back before the amended bylaw.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have noted that we will have a review staff and bring back to council whatever direction we're recommending moving forward.
Any other questions? Let's read the resolution.
Moved by Councillor McKelvey, seconded by Councillor Sisson, that council receives report 2647 Finance, Bereavement Authority of Ontario, BAO, reporting as information, and that council approve the transfer of all funds, roughly $8,635, from the Scotia Wealth Trust account to the CIBC Cemetery Trust account.
All those in favor? That's carried. Council and committee remuneration. Tell us how rich we are.
Yes, this is just the standard report that's required under the municipal act before March 31st. that just details compensation of councils and boards.
Councillor Sani?
Yes, thank you for this report again. And through the chair, Zach, you're new, and so you didn't know in past years what I've asked because of how this is broken down, that a big portion of this is because of my role, for example, in the Rural Ontario Municipalities Association. And so it appears here that this is from Minden Hills as opposed to other organizations where that income is being reported from. So if this is going to be published again or whatever, could we have that breakdown so it's very clear what comes from Minden Hills and what doesn't? Directly?
Yes,
Thank you.
and just to that point through the chair, we did have a section there that says paid externally. But I can make it more clear that it's coming from.
Just to, yeah, because that's fine print.
Yeah.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you
No
very
problem.
much.
Councillor McKelvey?
You would have received something from Roma. I mean,
Yes.
Maybe that would help if it was just attached as well then, yeah, so that it shows, but it has to be recorded. Yeah,
Okay. Any other questions? Please read the resolution.
Moved by Counselor Sisson, seconded by Counselor McKelvey, that council receives report 2648, finance 2025, council and committee remuneration for information.
All those in favor? That is carried. Continue, finance STR program.
Yes, through the chair. This when I got here, and when we started, I kind of started right at budget time, and there was quite a bit of talk on short-term rentals and mat tax. So I did dive into our program here, and I do have quite a bit of experience in my past roles implementing an STR program. And a big part of the issue is compliance. That's always the issue. You have, I'll be honest, you have some people operating STRs that don't know they need a license, and even though it's communicated through council, it doesn't always get to those operators. And then you have operators that don't want to pay a license, don't want to be inspected, which I would say are probably less than the amount that don't know they need a license. And a big part of getting them in compliance is enforcement. And when I did review our bylaw, I noticed there is a bit of enforcement in there, but there's not a lot. There's not a lot of teeth to the enforcement section. And this is where I feel AMPs or administrative monetary penalties would really help the short-term rental administrator and bylaw to move this program into full compliance, as well as help collect our mat tax. Now, administrative monetary penalties is a tool under the Municipal Act, and it also has its own legislation, where the municipality can take some minor provincial offenses and move them in-house. So meaning we would administer it similar to the way a provincial offense would be administered. So we'd have appeal processes that you have to, and it's all legislated. Fine amounts that are communicated, and you would also have a screening process or a screening officer. So there's a lot of steps in how the administrative monetary penalty works. The first step is obviously setting up a bylaw and a process, and listing out the fines that you want to fall under the AMPs. Now, right now we're focusing on short-term rentals and fines related to that. It can be rolled out into other areas, but we'll do baby steps, and we'll start with the STRs, try to get those in compliance, try to collect the funds, especially around mat tax and reporting of the mat tax funds. This is the whole STR and mat tax. It's a big role. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of administration, especially when you move to an AMPS process. There's notices, there's timelines, and you do need a person or a body to stay on top of that. So part of my report is moving a full-time staff, or sorry, a part-time contract position to a full-time staff if we want to go down this path and if we want to ensure compliance on these issues. Part of that contract staff to a full-time staff would be acting as a screening officer. So with the AMPS process, I touched on it, but there's kind of 3 steps. There's a issue of a ticket, which has to be paid within a certain amount of time. If it's not paid or they disagree with the ticket, they would see a screening officer. So that's the first step of your appeals process. Evidence would be collected, both sides would present, and the screening officer would decide whether or not the ticket can proceed or not proceed. If it proceeds and it's still the person who received the fine still disagrees, it would then go to a hearing officer who's a third party and external from the township. There's no new evidence that could be presented. They would look at the evidence and make a decision whether the fine could proceed or not proceed. So while that sounds simple, there's quite a few steps and timelines of process to it. And if we're going to issue fines and get people in compliance, we need somebody that's staying on top of this. And I'm speaking that from what I've seen here, but also from experience. There is a lot of work that goes into it. And in my report, I've kind of broken down the STR revenue and the MAT tax revenue that we're currently getting. I've built also in an attachment where we can see what I estimate based on our numbers. I will say it's an estimate because especially with our MAT tax, the reporting that we haven't had much reporting on it. We're just starting to see reporting coming in on it and collection. So that is largely an estimate, but I will be able to refine those numbers over this year as you know, we are starting to see some collection come in. But I do believe we need that enforcement tool in order to keep compliance. It's not just with our STR licensing and our MAT tax collection, but when it comes to inspections, people not operating within their license, you know, too many people at a Airbnb or a short-term rental or whatever it might be, this will give us the tools to charge and enforce those infractions. I think, and the one thing I did want to mention is in the body of the report, I talked about our current STR revenue and our current MAT tax revenue, and I've broken it down from 24 to 2026. And in October of 25 is when we hired a short-term rental administrator. And you can see just by sending notices out, we're starting to collect MAT tax revenue. So having somebody staying on top of that, meeting timelines, sending notices out is going to correlate with increased revenues and collection on the MAT tax and STR.
So on these administrative, do you call them fines or?
Administrative monetary penalties, or AMPs for short, yeah.
On these AMPs, do you have a certain amount of leeway as to what the penalty is on each of these fines?
Yes. Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
I know that, you know, this has been a huge issue on other types of things like parking tickets, where towns have said, you know, we've got such a huge problem, it's going to be now $100 if you park illegally, and then the courts say, no, that's too much. You know, charge them 10 or something. You know, to me, the biggest fine, obviously there's safety issues and so on, but the biggest fine should be people who are operating without a license. I mean, you know, we have to make, you know, get people to get their licenses so that we can have this program go forward successfully. But people operating without a license should, people make the calculation, well, it's only gonna cost me $50 if they catch me, so I'll operate without a license because I make a lot of money until they catch me, and then it's not a real penalty. So I just want to make sure that we have the ability there to make it punitive enough that people will not operate without a license. I mean, there'll always be some, but
Yes, and so council does have the ability to set the fine amount. I believe the legislation speaks to it being reasonable. That being said, in my previous roles, our license fee was around $1,200 for an STR. And we started a fine of $500 with zero change in compliance. We moved it up to, I believe, double what a license fee was. And then we started seeing compliance. So it will take, we will bring this bylaw back, and it will probably take some fine tuning to see what a reasonable fine is. But the nice thing with the amps is you could have, say, the first offense is 500, the second offense is 1,000, the third offense is 5,000, and it's a graduated system. And I've seen that most effective and also be considered reasonable because they're still committing an offense, even though they've already paid a fine or been warned or whatever it might be. But we will bring that back with the fine amount, so council can have a look and approve the fine amounts in the bylaw.
questions, Councilor McKelvey?
So I'm very supportive of the penalty, the amps. I think it should be applied to all of our enforcement type bylaws, not just short-term rentals. There's other municipalities that have implemented these amps a long time ago, and I know that there's local municipalities that have implemented them. So I don't know if there's it warrants that whatever Dysart's amp is for a short-term rental would be the same as ours or similar or something. But I am very supportive of that. I just don't understand. Excuse me, we have to hire a hearing officer. So that's like, would it be a lawyer or would it be a paralegal or?
You can use both. It has to be somebody that has experience, is what the legislation speaks to. I believe that the norm is paralegal because it's more cost effective.
So so there is cost to that.
Of course, yes.
Okay, so then the other question is the screening officer. Are we going to have the need for another staff person down the road here that's going to become our screening officer for all these things?
It's my hope that the short-term rental administrator could take on that role as the screening officer. The issue, so the legislation speaks to keeping these positions separate. So the person who issues the fine has to be separate than the screening officer. The person who's a screening officer can't be the person that issues a fine or the hearing officer. The hearing officer can't be related to anybody who issues a fine or so it's very specific. But I think with the way we have it proposed, having the short-term rental administrator being the screening officer will give us will put us in compliance with the legislation.
Can we, when people keep going along with not really an appeal, but I mean, can we say, fine, if you're unsuccessful, you pay the costs?
I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah.
It's just that if we have to go out, hire, a third person, that's gonna cost money to do that. And if it costs me nothing to appeal, it's like these, these traffic, or the people that, represent you in court, a lot of people go to court to appeal their speeding ticket or whatever on the hope that they win, and often, they do. And the thing is, if it doesn't cost me anything to keep pushing this down the road, I will do it. And then we're the one to have the cost, so that's
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I think what Mr. Drinkwalter is doing is introducing the concept of amps today. We will bring back a much more fulsome report and bylaw for council to consider. I don't know that we have all the answers around amps today. I think what what we had committed to was bringing council information back on our short-term rentals, mat tax. We have seen a noticeable improvement in revenue collection and compliance since we've dedicated a resource to this. What we're recommending to council today is that the concept of amps is something we want to pursue. And we would move our current part-time resource to a permanent full-time if this is a program that council wants to embed in as one of the programs we have. One of the challenges that we've had since day one is short-term rentals is a big program. And we've been trying to manage it sort of off the side of a bunch of desks. Noticeable improvement when we've dedicated a resource, even part-time to it. And we think we can do much better with some enforcement tools and with dedicating a resource.
Councilor Sandy.
Yes, in support of what was just said as well. I think it's interesting too to note that there's been a recent court case with the Tiny Township. And Tiny Township has successfully won that in terms of its being able to create new and set of rules and regulations for short-term rentals with their experience, based on experience. So if we need to tweak things as we go, because we see the experience and the violations that are taking place, we need to change the fines. There is now, because all of our municipalities across Ontario and further have been dealing with this, at least now that we know that we have a legal precedence, that we are on the right track with this. Unfortunately, the province didn't step in to help all the municipalities to address this with some of their options within the regulations. But so us as another municipality have taken the bull by the horns. And there might be some tweaks that we see along the way, but the main thing is that this has been supported by Superior Court, that we have the right to do this. And so if anybody's thinking about trying to not follow the rules, they're out of luck. Thank you.
I think I serve on a committee that deals with appeals right now at the county level, so that's already in place. Really,
That's for the licensing.
That's
I
for
don't know if
fines
it
as
can
well.
be used, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it was. We've rescinded fines at that committee level.
Councilor McKelvey.
The committee at the county can remove, yeah, it's points or something. It's not the fines part of that, but again, I really want to see the asset or the AMP's program put in place for all enforcement bylaws, not just this. The second part of this report is dealing with the staffing part of it and how you would pay for that. And again, Zach wasn't here, but I thought, and I could be wrong, that the mat tax was never going to be used for operating. It was going to be put into a separate reserve and used for recreational type projects. It was never intended to stay as a operating revenue, which is something for last year's budget. You'll have to bring, because that should, whatever, all that big money that we got should be put into a reserve. So the financing of it's not quite the way I would have thought we were going to do it. That tax was not operating revenue. I'm struggling with changing a part-time position to a full-time, and I'll tell you why, because we just did our budget not very long ago and it wasn't mentioned. This number that you have estimated with changes for 26 salaries and benefits of 58,000, we'll round it up. Next year's gonna be more than that because this is only a part year estimate. So I have trouble with these numbers in that, and the fact that we did a budget. I asked at the budget meeting about whether we were including the budget for the part-time short-term rental person for the whole year, and it was included. I think that, yes, the whole short-term rental thing was a bit overwhelming for everybody to deal with in the beginning, but we should have gotten processes and things put together that have made it easier for that person, I would think, over time. And while I appreciate that the AMPS program may bring us some fines, we really don't know what that'll bring. And I don't know that they'll bring it this year, because I'm not sure you'd even get the bylaws in place this year, but that's my thoughts. I can't support changing that position to full-time, but I do support the AMPS program.
Go ahead.
I just without that support, you're right, we won't see fines or a bylaw this year, but if we have that staff, and if we're going to have that position also do screening, it can't be a part-time role. There's no way I see implementing this with a person that, their contract's up in September and likely is probably gone before then, to find, a full-time employment.
Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the comments. Right now, any administration that's being done is notices going up, follow-up phone calls, that kind of thing. What Mr. Drinkwalter is talking about is putting a whole new program on top of this, which is AMPS. And Councillor McKelvey, you're talking about potentially expanding AMPS. We can't do that with a part-time resource. And we're just going to be flat out honest here, Council, that if you want this program to be successful, we have to resource it properly. I mean, STR's whole new line of business 2.5 years ago. And now we're talking about AMPS. Yes, many municipalities, one of my former municipalities has a full-blown AMPS program. They have a whole team of people that is administering it. So.
Councillor Saini.
Yeah, I support changing this to full-time position. We also wanted to make sure that this program was going to pay for itself as a municipality. So it doesn't just kind of go into, if there's great revenues above that full-time staff, that's great. But I think hopefully over time, this will pay for itself in some ways. I know just by the number of calls I've already gotten and emails that we have an issue here that more and more people are getting pretty upset about and seeing how the rules are being bent and not being addressed. And if I'm seeing this in my way of being outside of the everyday work, I can't imagine, and forwarding all this to staff every day, I can't imagine from all of us and from many people out there how much more work this is going to be above what we might have expected if we're going to do it right and fairly. So I totally support, we have to have a full-time person in place. We can reevaluate that after a year or two, but at this point in time, I think we need to have that full-time position in place. Thank you.
My comments were much along the lines of what Councillor Saini was just saying. And again, we can't guarantee something, but that was what was one of the biggest points that county council and municipal councils made, was that the program must be able to sustain itself and that it was not going to cost any of the lower tier municipalities anything out of the budget. So, I mean, I guess that's what I just need to be assured of, is that it's actually going to cover the cost of this full-time employee. Otherwise, we're going against the very reason why we set it up in the first place.
Through the chair, obviously, I can't guarantee that that's going to happen, but my goal and my goal in my previous role was that it was a self-funded program. we were lucky and to Councillor McKelvey's point on we can't guarantee fines, which we can't. We saw in my previous role a substantial amount of revenue from fines. Not that we want to rely on that, but I think we'll see that income line. But we can also look at, once we're a year or maybe two into this program, we can look at the financials and say, okay, our license fee isn't what it should be, or our fines aren't what they should be. Because we're not self-funding this program. And then we can look at increasing it, much like we do the tax rate every year to cover, our operating expenses. So it is something that always needs to be reviewed and looked at, but my goal is to have it self-funded, because I agree this isn't a program that should cost taxpayers dollars. The people that are generating the revenue and are getting the licensing, inspection, and service should be paying for that service.
Well, then to what, that was my point on that is, so you say, to get supplemented with fines, but we don't even have bylaw that's going to work on the weekend, when 99.9% of the time, that's when these fines would have to be, charges would have to be issued and laid. So like, how does that work then? I mean, did you have, when you say in your previous municipality or your previous position, did they have weekend bylaw that was laying these charges to be able to receive the fines to offset the cost of the staff?
So in my previous roles, I went through very similar conversations. And we did start with one person who was also a bylaw officer that managed the STR program. That program now has 4 full-time officers, 1 administrative person, and a manager. That is all funded by STRs and fines. They work on, there's weekend staff, in the summers, there's weekend staff, that, I would say 80 to 90%. We also had a dog pound, but 80-90% was, looking after our short-term rentals. So the program grew substantially. Our fees went up substantially. It turned into quite to more than anybody could imagine at that municipality. I can't say the same will happen here, but if we want to run a successful program, we will have to put resources into it, or we'll come to budget next year and we'll be wondering why our STR revenue and our MAT tax revenue is low.
Just read the resolution and go from there.
Okay. Moved by Counselor Ingram, seconded by Counselor Saney, that council receives report 2649 finance STR program as information, and that council approves the position of short-term rental coordinator as a permanent full-time position, and that council directs staff to bring forward and implement an AMPS administrative monetary penalty bylaw to assist with enforcement for short-term rentals.
All those in favor? It's carried. We now will be moving into closed session. We'll start closed session at 11:15. Give you enough time? Okay, please read the resolution.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Shell, seconded by Councillor McKelvey. Be it resolved that council proceed into closed session at 11:15 a.m. for the purpose of discussing one item pursuant to section 239(2)D of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended regarding labor relations or employee negotiations, personnel matters.
All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, welcome. Welcome back. You have a resolution to resume open session.
I do. Moved by Counselor Sami, seconded by Counselor Johansson. Be it resolved that closed session adjourned and open session resumes at 11:44 a.m.
All those in favor? That is carried. Report from closed session.
Moved by Counselor Sisson, seconded by Counselor McKelvey. Be it resolved that direction given in closed session be approved.
All those in favor? It's carried. So we have a notice of motion. Counselor Sani, you want to speak to your motion?
Sure, thank you. Through the mayor. This is the dark skies. And it's been something that's been on our books and on our agenda for a very long time, at least maybe 8 years, or close to. And so how many? Ivan has suggested even longer because I think you were staff person here when this first came up. Retired. He retired. Yes. So this has been here a very long time, but I wanted to put this back onto our plate and see if we can get this done before the end of terms of council. There are a lot of people on the climate change committee that put this forward, who did a lot of work on this proposal. The dark skies is not uncommon to have this kind of township bylaw. It's one that has been adopted by, if you go up the Bruce Peninsula, all along there, it's dark skies. It's a tourist attraction. They have pamphlets out about it. I think I might have included some in this as well. It's an international movement. If you understand things environmentally, bird patterns, whatever that might be, fish, that the bright lights that we often emit have a great influence on our nature that we don't even see. So that's part of it. The other is, I get sometimes calls about lighting and neighbors' lights and things like that. So it addresses those sorts of issues. One of the things that people might not know is that Ross Rigney, I believe it was, and he was negotiating to have Canadian Tire increasing our revenues and our businesses and commercial here. He worked with Canadian Tire to make sure that the Canadian Tire streetlights there in the parking lot were downward facing as well. So this is not kind of new to some of what we've tried to do in Minden already, but we're making it formal in this case. So there's lots of information here. I did encourage that we put all of this into our package. So if there's any questions, we could raise them with staff before it comes back to council. So we're not going back and forth between council comments and the bylaw and back and forth, but we could address them all sooner than later and try to get this done before we go into a lame duck situation where we can't really pass a new bylaw. So I'm hoping not just before the end of council, but before we go into any potential lame duck of council, that we could approve this particular lighting bylaw, which has received a great deal of support. I want to also add that sometimes people are concerned about safety and sometimes about farming and with lights that are needed and things like that. It does not affect that. Safety is a priority with lighting. I know that. I worked with Women Plan Toronto, and we made sure that we had good lighting in places that needed to be. We do the same thing in Minden when we need places lit for safety or for other areas of need, that lighting is there. But this is saying that we're not going to shine our lights up into the sky and that we are going to have some regulations and some ideas for people. The reason it's coming forward to now is that we're growing. We want to make sure that people understand the effects of what lighting they put into place now. So we are all following suit. So any comments or any questions, or do people appreciate this going forward, or thank you?
I would agree with Councillor Sani. This has been before us it has been before us many times, but it was here at least once or twice a long time ago, and I do recall it. And I remember when, I won't state the name of the store, but when the most recent largest grocery store was built in Dysart, that was huge, because if you're on Cache, and you're on the opposite side of the lake, it lights up the whole sky. And, and it's, I'm glad to see this forward anyway. Yeah, we definitely need to follow suit through this with Minden.
Any other questions? Staff? point of view. Ask is here, is it doable?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I will take this back and review it with the pertinent staff.
Okay, that was a non-answer, but that's fine. Yeah. Councilor McKelvey.
I tell, sorry, Councilor Ingram's disturbing our concentration here, but I don't think the lame duck provisions would apply to such a bylaw, so we're not, but you know, her resolution is asking for it to be before the end of the terms.
Yeah.
That should be fine. I definitely support it.
Yep.
Okay, moved by Counselor Saney, seconded by Counselor Anderson. The council directs staff to draft a report and bylaw relating to implementing a dark sky bylaw, and that the report and draft bylaw be brought forward to a meeting prior to the end of the current council term.
All those in favor? That's carried. Bylaws.
Moved by Counselor Ingram, seconded by Counselor Saney. Be it resolved that the following bylaws be received, read a first time, considered read a second and third time, and finally passed with the corporate seal affixed. Bylaw 2634, severance agreement PL SEVA 2026007. Bylaw 2635, SRA PL SRA 2025016. Bylaw 2636, SRA PL SRA 2025047. Bylaw 2637, SRA PL SRA 2024, bylaw 2638, to adopt an estimates and expenditures bylaw.
Sorry, I wanted to ask a question about the expenditure estimates of expenditures. It's our budget, basically. I just want to know, will we get a new fresh copy of our budget now that everything's being finalized and hopefully reserves and that sort of thing?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can follow up with our treasurer. I know he's working on a quarterly report for council.
Those in favor? That is carried. So, confirming bylaw.
Moved by Counselor Anderson, seconded by Counselor Saney, that bylaw 2639 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council held during its meeting of March 26, 2026, be received, read a first time, considered read a second and third time, and finally passed with the corporate seal affixed.
All those in favor? That is carried. Adjournment.
Moved by Counselor McKelvey, seconded by Counselor Sisson. Be it resolved that the March 26, 2026 regular council meeting is hereby adjourned at 11:52 a.m.
All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, everyone. The next meeting scheduled for Thursday, April the 16th at 9 a.m. Enjoy your Easter break.